Meeting. We've just met for a half an hour in closed session to review a couple of simple matters. So now we're moving into the regular meeting. Any additional items tonight? We'll start at the far end. Councillor Koepke.
Thank you, Your Worship. One item regarding Earth Film Festival and another regarding a listing of local scholarships available.
And Deputy Mayor Wright, I think I saw your hand up.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have two items. One on beavers that I've talked to Community Director about, and the other on Order of Good Cheer.
I'm glad you finished that because you said beavers that I've spoken to and then you hesitated and then
The
said
Community
that,
Director.
Okay, I just
Director of
wanted to make
Community
sure you
Affairs.
weren't talking to beavers.
I've done that too.
Yeah, that's a Canadian thing. Councillor Thomas.
Thanks, Your Worship. I have four items, two under economic development, one on the cottage show and one on the upcoming creative mixer, and two under the library, pardon me, on the upcoming community club fair and on a comic book drive.
Okay. Anyone else down there? Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one item on the Kiwanis Music Festival.
Good. Anyone else? Seeing none. Okay, excellent. It's down to number 4, disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Anyone? Seeing none. Confirmation of minutes from March 21st.
Moved by thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Wright. The minutes of the regular council meeting held on March 21st, 2016, as printed, be adopted.
Thank you. Ms. Stovall?
Your Worship, we apologize. There was one error in those minutes in the one motion regarding the joint ad hoc committee requested by Ontario Police Services. It was actually tabled for 2 weeks.
Okay.
So,
Thank you. Councillor Koepke?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to point out a correction to the spelling of Milldam in items 3C and 12C.
And,
The word dam is spelled incorrectly.
okay. So Councillor Lemon and Deputy Mayor Wright, with those amendments, your motion stands to approve. Okay, and all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Number 6 is resolution moving council into committee of the whole.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Wright. The City Council now go in committee of the whole to consider public meetings, deputations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports, matters tabled, and motions for which notice was previously given, and other business.
Thank you. All in favor? That is carried. So we are now in committee of the whole. Number 7, public meetings. We have no public meetings tonight. Number 8, deputations. We have 2 deputations. We're starting with Teresa Pearson. She's the Program Manager of Social, Recreational, and Leisure ID Clinic. I don't know what ID means. And Community Garden Program with Canadian Mental Health. Welcome.
Thank you. Hopefully it'll stay. Yeah, it might not.
There we go.
There we go.
High tech.
Hello. Good
Welcome.
evening, Your Worship, distinguished councillors, and fellow delegates. Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak with you for a few minutes this evening. I'm Teresa Pearson, one of the managers at Canadian Mental Health. One of my responsibilities is overseeing the garden program we operate here in Owen Sound. We have 19 raised beds to the left of the United Way building, 69 raised beds at the old tennis courts by St. George's, and 5 beds along First Avenue East by the Metro grocery store. I employ 12 gardeners every year with mental health issues to grow and harvest produce for our community brunch program. We also have available approximately 34 by 8 raised beds for members of the community to access, which on an annual basis. At our gardens along First Avenue East, which we refer to as our walk and snack gardens, we grow produce that members of the community can help themselves to as they go for a walk along the harbor. We also have beautiful sunflower displays, which many people stop to have their picture taken with. The sunflower is the symbol of CMHA. I am here for several reasons. One, to ask for an extension of our lease at the old tennis courts up by St. George's, and two, to ask you to consider our using the space next to the tennis courts for a food forest and continue discussions with the planning department with regards to this project. CMHA has been actively in gardening at the old tennis courts for 3 years. I believe that we continue to improve the space and have created a wonderful beehive of activity for members of the community. The mental and physical benefits of gardening and being part of a community cannot be overstated. The need for access to healthy, affordable, and local food is considerable. We propose to design, plant, and grow an edible urban forest garden that inspires our community to gather together, grow our own food, and rehabilitate our local ecosystem. Some of our goals include improving our local food security, providing educational opportunities, and celebrating growing healthy food for the benefit of all in the community who want to be part of this exciting opportunity. This food forest will be inclusive of all members of our community in a supportive and restorative environment. The initial concept sketch, which we have, includes wheelchair walker stroller accessibility, an outdoor classroom, native tree planting, more community beds, as we have a waiting list right now for beds, a fruit orchard, an edible labyrinth. Thomas Dean, who was kind enough to come with me this evening for support, a therapeutic horticulture specialist, has drawn up the initial concept, and if the food forest is approved in principle, will be retained as project manager once funding is secured. He has drafted a well-thought-out 3-year plan of the implementation of this project. There are a handful of food forests in Canada. This would put Owen Sound among the leaders in community-based food security and wellness. Thank you for your consideration of this very exciting opportunity in our community.
Okay, questions, comments? Councillor Lemon.
Well, Your Worship, I find that very, very exciting. I do realize that there's an awfully strong relationship between being outside and being creative and growing things. Mm-hmm. And I will move the recommendations, or the requests rather, that the lease be extended and that the food forest go ahead. I think this is a really exciting project and something that we as a community that are in a green area should be encouraging. Mm-hmm. And so I will move both of those. I think those are the 2 requests you had.
Yes, thank you.
And I would move both with pleasure.
So those will be in the first report that you can maybe wait and move it at that time if you wish. There's nothing to be moved yet. Councillor McManaman.
I just wonder, could we move that report forward since the delegation is here? Would it be possible to move that forward now, just have that discussion?
Before we get there, are there any other questions for Teresa? Comments? Seeing none. Oh, Marion, your hand did go up. Go
Just
ahead.
quickly, can you further explain what an edible labyrinth is to myself and the public?
Certainly. Well, it's the concept of a labyrinth with a little wider. So normally a labyrinth has very small spaces in between. Instead, you would be growing edible produce. So literally people could walk through and pick it, be maximum 3 feet high, but you'd be, whether it's tomatoes, whether it's snow peas, whether it's whatever, herbs, all different things that could be in there. And just make it a fun exploring, that would be part of that outdoor classroom setting, learning environment.
So is there some protection from rabbits, et cetera, from eating out of the garden?
Other than me sitting there at nighttime and scaring them, probably not. I think that's a reality near that forest that there would be some, but we share. If you plant enough, they'll never eat it all, there's for sure.
Thank you, Teresa. You came in several weeks ago to see me, and your enthusiasm for this project was was going to say overwhelming, but that's not fair, but it was really noticeable. And you were bragging at that time the help that you were getting in the design, which is welcome. It's great that you came and that you're putting this together. So if you want to sit down just for a
Sure.
minute, then
Yeah, of course.
Councillor McManaman has suggested that we move the report. And if everyone is okay with that, we're moving up 11A1. And Ms. Coulter, you're going to present that?
Thank you, Your Worship. In 2011, the city had approved a community gardens policy, and has been referenced, the goal of the policy really was to encourage physical and mental health and well-being, access to healthy food, and to guide the placement of community gardens like the one that has been discussed tonight. The policy does require the organization to have an agreement with the city, and in 2012, Canadian Mental Health entered into a 3-year agreement with the city on those former tennis court lands. The organization has been an excellent steward and forerunner of community gardens in Owen Sound. So the request really has 2 parts. One is that you renew the existing lease for a period of 5 years. And the second is that we deal with the expansion of the garden to the north and east. So perhaps the clerk could go to the second slide, which I think is a picture of the garden. So in terms of the renewal of the existing lease, it's been a very positive project, well maintained, and the recommendation does include an extension for the 5-year term. And essentially that's the area on the former tennis courts inside that fence. The second part of the request deals with the extension to the north, as you see those raised beds and labyrinth, and to the east, the food forest with the trees. Staff have circulated this to various groups and organizations, and they're recommending that you support it in principle with detailed design and phasing of the expanded garden going through Community Services Committee and coming back to Council for that agreement. So the second part of the recommendation is that you endorse the extension in principle, subject to details coming back. I know there was a very positive meeting today with staff, and the plan is to have that report to committee on April the 20th.
Great, thank you. So Councillor Lemon, go ahead.
Yes, Your Worship, I would move the extension of the lease for the 5 years as requested, and that negotiations continue with the city on the other area, and that would come back to council for final approval once it was through community services.
So you're moving both parts of the recommendation then in the report?
Yes.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Wright?
Thank you very much. Through you, Your Worship, to Ms. Coulter. It doesn't say anything in there, but it seems to me that when we did do the original agreement, we agreed to supply the water for the watering of the gardens.
Yeah, perhaps Teresa can help me out there. I know there was a discussion and there was around a kind of a hydrant.
What happened there?
We applied for a grant from Community Foundation Grey Bruce and had the water hooked up and installed. It's inside of the existing community gardens now. So we did get a grant for that, and
The water is installed.
Yes.
There's hookups and everything, and the city pays, like the city?
no, we pay.
Do you get a water?
We pay for the water. And we pay for the water for, like, everything that's in the community garden area is our gardeners and the community gardeners. So they have access to our tools, to our seeds, to the water, everything, because we just want them to come out and garden and enjoy themselves. So yes, we do.
I'm surprised you didn't ask us for that.
No. You saved the asks for.
Okay, Councillor McManaman?
Thank you, Worship, and I just wanted to echo the other comments that this partnership couldn't have gone much better, really. At the beginning, we weren't all sure how it was going to work, and it's really, to your credit, it's worked very well. The only comments I'll make, and I know it's coming back to committee, so we can discuss those then. The inclusion of a washroom, that's a discussion. I think that's a much bigger discussion. We've dealt with at least two different times, and washrooms can get into what seems simple into hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that's just one where if there's another alternative of just using the existing one there that's there for the ball diamond, that might be a simpler way to go and far less expensive. And the second one would be the extension of that roadway into the hazard area. Again, that can get complicated too. So I know this is all going to come back. Those are just some of my comments when I saw it. The rest of it looks excellent and like a great opportunity. Those were just 2 comments, but that'll come back to council.
We can work through the details at committee level as we, with staff. Okay, Councillor Lemon, if you need to.
Yeah, just one point. At the time of the water, I reminded staff that there had been a water main in there. I think there's also a sewer in there to the old, where the building was for the St. George's Lawn Bowling Club. So there may be a sewer line already in there.
Okay, good, thank you. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? It's carried unanimously. Good, thank you. Done. Going back in the agenda, I'm back to 8B, which is the next deputation from Virginia Icorn, Director, Chief Curator, Tom Thompson Art Gallery, with regard to Betwixt and Between project. That we have a booklet in front of us, I see. Welcome.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of Council. Oh. I'm here to speak to you about our Betwixt and Between an Untold Tom Thompson story that we are producing with artists Germinio Piopoliti and Joel Richardson. The world is changing. How people access information, education, and how they interact with each other is changing rapidly. This affects all sectors and aspects of society, including museums and public art galleries. Integrating innovative new technologies into operations, along with more traditional modes of presentation, are no longer nice to have. They are needs to have in order to stay relevant and to engage audiences, particularly the younger demographic. In August, this past summer, my family and I took a vacation in Montreal. We visited the McCord Museum, which is a fairly traditional museum, and here are some examples of how they are integrating technologies. This exhibition displayed First Nations artifacts, and here you can see they used a simple iPad display. There is a video with 12 contemporary First Nations artists who were invited to talk about objects that were on display, what their reactions were to them, and why they were culturally important. The image on the left is from a display about the history of Montreal. On the iPads were videos of people talking about memories and experiences and how Montreal had changed. The image on the right was a video of a demonstration showing how the pot in the display case would have been made. We also visited the Phi Center, which describes itself as a multidisciplinary arts and culture hub. It is using the most advanced and cutting-edge technologies in its exhibitions, but these exhibitions still come out of the core purpose for museums, to tell stories. The ones in this exhibit are all about being displaced, losing one's home. In the image on the left, people are experiencing a story of a Syrian girl at a refugee camp through virtual reality. The image on the right is a pop-up hospitality station. Being able to socialize and discuss the experiences are encouraged on many levels, and it is a core motivator for millennials. This was a fully immersive experience. Sight, sound, movement, wind. You experienced what it was like to be a bird flying between skyscrapers, trying to get back to your nest. I tried that and basically had my eyes shut the whole time because I don't like heights. Most of the strategies that are used to engage audiences may seem like they are just games or entertainment, but they go much deeper than just being for fun. These games are being used as a means for creative expression, as instruments for conceptual thinking, and as tools to help examine or work through social issues. These are animated, but that's okay. The image on the left is one such game where you are a political prisoner. The answers you give your interrogator change the outcome as to whether or not you survive. The image on the right depicts the journey of a man whose hometown, a mining town up north, no longer exists. He documents the history and memories of it through new technologies, but uses a traditional scrapbook form. The public lives in a digital world, especially young people. They want to be able to create their own experience, especially in museums. That gives us an opportunity. Many museums were set up according to 19th century ideas, and institutions that do not find ways to innovate and remain relevant will find themselves left at the side of the road. There's a paradigm shift going on in terms of how people use their time and how they engage with institutions, artifacts, and artworks. We need to be ready to embrace the revolution of the 21st century. And the way that we will make that happen is to look at how these digital strategies can serve to strengthen and enhance our core purpose and mission. Which leads us to the Tom Thomson's Betwixt and Between, an Untold Tom Thomson Story that we will be opening in May 2017. John Bisaccis, the new director and CEO of the ROM, has recently been quoted as saying, "A great museum visit should be transformative. It should give visitors a broadened sense of themselves and the world around them, and it should include experiences that make people want to come back again and again." This is what we are also aspiring to achieve. Here is our Jennings Young Gallery space on the left, which will be transformed into an orientation and discovery room, and our North Gallery. The maps on the wall and floor of our North Gallery depict what the 4 key locations in our project story would have looked like when Tom Thomson was alive. They are Owen Sound, Algonquin Park, Cape Croker, and Toronto. Amongst the artifacts are clues that unlock our story and that can be accessed physically, online, and we hope virtually. This is a detail of the exhibition. Imagine coming to the Tom, getting your guidebook, unlocking clues, and being able to see Tom Thomson and his friend George Najawan canoeing together in Algonquin Park. History would truly be made to come alive. And what is this untold story we are telling? It is a story that will speak to the Canadian sense of nationalism and of Canada's coming of age. It will address truth and reconciliation, the Great War, the story of Tom Thomson, and of the creation of art that is the visual equivalent of our national anthem. And at its core, it is a story about friendship. We are talking about big stories here, stories with national impact and importance, but they are all rooted in events that happened here in Owen Sound, and that are at least 85% authentic. In this, we also are challenging the role of traditional authority that museums, educational systems, and governments have held in interpreting historic events. We are planning for audiences to be able to virtually experience and participate in the exhibition. An educational component is being fully developed that will accompany the exhibition, and people can also take part in what is essentially a geocaching experience with 20 artifacts hidden in various locations in the 4 communities where the story unfolds. This experience can also be accessed online. We see this exhibition as defining the way forward in how we will look at enhancing the opportunities for engagement with virtual and physical audiences who visit the Tom. The goal is to have as much activity for visitors to our website as we do for our visitors on site. As always, we thank the City of Owen Sound, the Canada Council for the Arts, and the Ontario Arts Council for operational support for the Tom, and we thank the Ontario Arts Council and TD who are providing their support for this project. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you about Betwixt and Between, and I look forward to updating you on developments as we move forward with the project.
Great, thank you. Questions, comments? Travis? Councillor Dodd?
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks again for doing this, Virginia. This was a great presentation. One of the things that you'd said in there, we see how much, when you look at your phone now, you don't use maps, you don't use magazines, you use your iPad instead. So one of those steps that the galleries and museums in the near future are just going to be switching to more things like this, using their technology and taking advantage of it, getting more people interactive and more people engaged in parts of our history. So it's great to see what the Tom's going to lead to, so thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Others? Good, thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
So next on the agenda is number 9, public question period. Anyone in the public? No, not seeing anyone moving quickly enough. Correspondence received, and we have no correspondence received that we need to deal with or give direction to. So it takes us down to 11, which is reports of committee and city staff. So we've dealt with number 1 already, so if we can move to number 2, which is a report from the Director of Corporate Services with regard to the DIA budget. Kate, are you presenting that?
Certainly, I'll introduce this report. The Ontario Municipal Act requires that a DIA Board of Management shall submit the budget to Council, and the municipality may approve it in whole or in part, but may not add expenditures to it. Attached to this report is the 2016 DIA budget. A meeting was held by the DIA on March 16th, at which point it was accepted by their membership. Dave Parsons, the DIA chair, is here this evening if anyone has any specific questions. Overall, the levy is unchanged from the previous year. The other item that would tie into the city's budget would be the amount for parking, which does equal the contribution from the DIA does equal the contribution that the city has shown in their parking budget as well.
Good. Questions, comments? Mover? Councillor O'Leary?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that recommendation. And while we're talking about the DIA, I just want to mention that their annual celebration is April 14th at Hartwood upstairs. So if you could mark that date, councillors and staff.
You said April?
April 14th.
I'll be thinking of you. So with the, Jim? Councillor McManaman?
Just a suggestion, especially with the chair and members of the board here. The budget looks fine to me. The city just went through a service analysis discussion where we looked at every service, not so much the budget, but why do we do it? Should we keep doing it? Should we do more? Should we do less? And I think for all our boards, it would be, they should have that discussion as well. I don't know. I found it there was a lot of information there that, again, maybe didn't necessarily change something, but you learn more about it. So I would just encourage the DIA through our members to the board to consider that. Perhaps it was I thought it was a useful 2 days here, and perhaps it would be good for the DIA board as well. Just a suggestion.
Okay, good. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Deb, Rodney, Dave, thanks for coming in. Approved. Number 3 is from the Clerk's Department, I believe, Deputy Clerk encroachment agreement with regard to 1091 2nd Avenue East. So, Deputy Mayor.
Could I request that before we deal with the item, could we bring the minutes of the Operation Committee forward? Because that is in the operation minutes, and I think we need to approve those minutes before we deal with this question.
Okay, so before we get to 11A3 then, we're going to jump down to 11C2, which is minutes of Operation Committee meeting held March 23rd, 2016. So are you going to present?
If I could present those minutes, we could deal with the...
Do you want to just deal with this part of them, or do you want to deal with all of them?
Actually, I'd like to deal with this one and with the 12th Street East.
Okay, so we're going to deal with all of them. Okay.
If I could. And just if I could pull those two out and deal with them. Would that be all right?
Well, why don't you just deal with all the minutes right now?
All right, I'll just deal
We'll
with
keep
all
life
the
simple.
minutes. Then, so the Operations Committee meeting met on the 23rd of March, I believe it was. We had a public meeting at that time regarding parking along 4th Street West and off of 2nd Avenue West. There will be a report coming back to the committee on that. It was a well-attended public meeting. We had a 101 course on the wastewater treatment project, which was very interesting and a very educational experience for us. In engineering, we talked about on-street parking on 12th Street East, and the motion was put forth that the parking remain on the same as it is now in the existing configuration, and that was carried. We discussed the turning over of the lane that's coming up for question to the city, as the city is already looking after it now, and that was approved. And the parking at the Bay Shore, we would like to table that because it's going to be dealt with by Community Services, and so rather than muddy the waters, I would move that we table that one item on parking at the Bay Shore. And that's about it. That's of importance. So
Just
how do you want to
just
handle
before you go
it
any
all?
further, Ms. Stobo, well, there is a section in there on parking that operations looked at. We want to table that part of it and send it back to the committee. Do we move that separately right now? Is that the easiest?
Yes, Your Worship, that would be easy.
Go ahead.
So I move that we table that one section on parking at the Bay Shore and send it back to committee.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Okay, that is carried. Thank you.
And the rest of the minutes are there for approval.
Okay, so you're moving...
I'm moving the approval of those committee minutes.
Okay. Is there... Do you want to cover in that the report on water and wastewater, which is a pretty big one?
I thought I did.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, you mean about the
There's
I
an
can-
annual
yeah,
report in there
sorry.
that...
The reports, the annual reports on water and wastewater were brought forward. The annual report manager was there, gave us an overview on the report. I could read it to you. The arson event would have been contributed to the unaccounted for the water consumption. That was a situation that was raised about the consumption, the unaccounted water consumption in the report. Now, all this material that we had received is all attached to these minutes. So anyone that wishes to look at the charts on the water, when we had our annual inspection, will give you all the information that you need regarding how the inspection was carried out and what the inspection showed about the wastewater treatment plant. The Operations Committee considered the review and we reported it. Then we had the annual report came through from 2015, and that report again is attached, and it showed that our wastewater treatment plant is being handled very, very well. There were no serious problems that came up, and so that report was received.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or any further discussion to that?
Might I just say that information in those reports is all public, that the public can get a hold of that online as well.
Okay, so all in favor of approval of those minutes? That is carried. Thank you. Now if I can go back to 11A3, which is from Ms. Stobo, I believe, the encroachment agreement with regard to 1091 2nd Avenue East.
Your Worship, this matter involves a report which was dealt with in the minutes of the Operations Committee, where the committee recommended to council that a private lane, which had been in existence since the late 1800s, be assumed by the city. Council has now accepted that recommendation by approving the minutes. This particular encroachment agreement arises out of that. The city noted in the course of a minor variance application in the survey material provided by the applicant that there was a slight encroachment of the roof eaves over this private lane. If that lane was to be assumed by the city and become its road allowance, then an encroachment agreement would be required. The owners and developers of the property have agreed to that agreement, are in the process of finalizing building permits, and we do have a signed agreement, so this report recommends that the city enter that agreement, execute it, pass a bylaw. The bylaw is also on the agenda, as is the bylaw for the assumption of the lane.
Good, thank you. Councillor Dodd,
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd move the recommendation.
any comments, discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Number four from Ms. Stobo, again, encroachment agreement for 608 2nd Avenue East.
Your Worship, this agreement relates to gardens that were in place on the Burns property. If I just take you to the pictures at the end of this and the plan with the survey overlay on it, you can see between the red line, it's very hard to see on that up there, but between the red line, that's the existing fence line, and the blue line, that is 5 feet in from the fence line. Renewed Computers property is the subject property. They have 2 gardens back here at the edge of their lot line, which slightly encroach over onto the city's property. They're proposing to reestablish the gardens in this area between the hydro property and this other lot limit line. The pictures that are on the following pages generally show what was in place in prior years. They have met with staff, and no staff have any objections to this. The only issue that has been raised by staff is the possible need for the applicants to get the approval of the Conservation Authority, since they will be technically placing fill on lands that are zoned hazard, and they probably will not need a permit, but we've decided to request that that condition be added. We don't propose to register this encroachment agreement, but we're asking that council enter an encroachment agreement. It's being recommended by staff with the owners, and one will be prepared depending on the result of the meeting this evening.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Kepke?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm certainly not opposed to beautification, and that's, I think, the intent of what this individual has. So I would move the recommendation along with the contacting the Conservation Authority for that approval.
Okay, any further discussion? Ms. Coulter, anything you want to add? I think you've been involved in this.
I have, Your Worship, and thank you to Ms. Stobo for bringing forward the report.
So council will remember this is the computer center down past the old Y. There's an old road allowance up behind it that there is some gardens on that had been removed, and so this allows them to put the gardens back in and beautify the whole area. There's sort of a path that goes through there from the daycare, which is the Y's old daycare, at the house right next to the old Y. And they go up the back lane to a playground, which is, I don't know if it's hydro property. At one time it was an Esso gas station, according to Mr. Ritchie. He's old enough to remember. I don't. So all in favor of that? That is carried. Thank you. Number 5, water main cathodic protection. Mr. Becking, I think you're going to tell us about it.
Yes, Your Worship. The proposal is to award the contract to, bear with me here, Sutherland Construction in the amount of $363,759.15 The project involves the replacement of the sacrificial anodes that are attached to the water main that runs along the Eddie Sargent Parkway from 14th Street northerly to about 20th Street. It's a means of protecting the pipe from corroding by putting in place an anode that corrodes easier than the pipe itself. So in that way, it protects the pipe and prevents it from deteriorating. And as a consequence, we stave off the inevitable of having to replace the pipe. So it's good protection. I will point out that the budget for the project was $300,000, and obviously we're about $63,700 short. Staff have been able to economize in other areas of the budget, specifically the critical valve controls. We were able to purchase several of the units last year, and so they only need to be replaced now, the actual physical replacement. So we believe that we can take $60,000 out of that line item to compensate for the overage, as well as the pressure meter upgrades by going to ultrasonic meters that rather than mag meters. Again, we can economize without any loss in sensitivity or accuracy of the flow meters, and thereby come up with an additional $20,000. So that should cover off the overage, as well as give us a little bit of an extra contingency as well.
Good, thank you. Questions? Seeing none, someone want to move it? Councillor Thomas is moving the recommendation. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. That's number 5. We're down to number 6, Director of Community Services, with regard to the putt and paddle. We called submarinian putt and paddle this week, or?
It was a little wet on the island this week, Your Worship, no lack of water. So the putt and paddle has existed at Harrison Park for many years, and the Amiots have been involved in the operation since 2005. In 2011, the city signed a 5-year agreement with them, and as per the agreement, the Amiots did give the city in the fall their notice of their desire to renew the agreement. In October, there was a report through Rec and Parks Committee, and the recommendation of the committee approved by council was that the city renew the agreement with the Amiots for a 5-year term at the current rental rate with terms to be negotiated. Following direction by committee, staff met with Roger and Kathy this past December. So a copy of the redlined agreement is attached, and there are a few items that are addressed in the agreement, and one is access by vehicle to the island. This is something they do, and we've formalized it in the agreement. We've added Scott Amiot as a party to the agreement. The rent has a small increase of $10 per year, and we have a new clause that deals with the AODA requirements. The other general requirements of the agreement are outlined for you. They're the same as previously, with the exception of the insurance, which is now in the amount of $5 million. The Amiots have been an excellent operator and have represented the city well, and we recommend council approve a bylaw to authorize the new 5-year agreement.
Thank you. Questions? Or Councillor O'Leary?
I'm glad they added Scott to that. That's so Roger can golf more, but I'll move the recommendation. Thanks.
Okay. Any other comments? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Number 7. Ms. Coulter, you're presenting that use of farmers market by Zach Kishig.
I am. Thank you, Worship. The Owen Sound Farmers Market Vendors Association and Zach Kishig have requested the city approval to use the kitchen in a small area of the farmers market to prepare and serve dinners for a maximum of 10 people on Saturday and Sunday evenings. They will pay the market their for-profit rate. Zach has been working with the Business Enterprise Center, and he's a graduate of the Culinary Chefs Training Program at Georgian College. The structure of the city's current agreement with the Farmers Market Vendors Association does require council approval of this type of use. In 2009 and 10, the city installed, in partnership with the RED program, and the Market Association to undertake a kitchen upgrade to a commercial kitchen. And this is exactly the type of incubator that was contemplated in that upgrade. Based on the comments that we've received, we support the request from the Farmers Market Vendors Association and recommend Council approve the use on Saturday and Sunday evenings from April to September, subject to the conditions that are outlined in the report.
Okay, questions? Councillor Thomas?
I'll move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Any other discussion? No? Deputy Mayor Wright has a question.
Just, is this going to be like open to the public, or is this going to be private affairs?
There's a maximum of 10 people, and so it will be open to the public,
It is open
yes.
to the public, okay, thank you. I just couldn't see that in the...
Councillor McManaman?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just clarification. I think I know the answer. It says payment for use of the space. The payment goes back to the Farmers Market Vendors Association, correct?
Through Your Worship, that's correct.
Okay. Then I have a subsequent motion after this motion, Your Worship.
Okay, so I'm going to call the question on this one. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Your Worship. And as you read this report, there's a lot of information here about the Farmers Market Association, what they do, how they run that that building, that heritage building on the city's behalf. And I'm wondering if we could, similar to what we did with the Housing Board, ask the Farmers Market Association to come to council and make a deputation as to what they do, how they do it. Because that, in my time, I don't think they've ever come and explained how the relationship works. And there's a lot of information in this report, but I'm, that I learned for the first time, and probably the public doesn't even know.
So do we need a motion or just an invitation?
I'd move that we give them an invitation to come and...
Okay, all in
come to
favor?
council.
That is carried. Thank you. Down to number 8, which is a report from the event facilitator with regard to Amateur Radio Field Day.
Thank you, Worship. The Georgian Bay Amateur Radio Club has held an event annually on the 4th weekend of June since the 1930s. The event is an outdoor demonstration held over 24 hours in a public location, and they have in the past been at Grey Roots as well as at the Conservation Authority. The group have asked to use a small area outside the bay shore, as is shown on the map that's attached to the report. The group does provide essential service during emergencies and does participate in the city's emergency training exercise. This group did come forward to our Canada 150-owned Sound 160 meeting and look for a way where they could be part of that celebration. They're hoping if they can find a venue that works for 2016, that they would then have a site for 2017 and beyond. So they're requesting the use of the space outside the Bayshore for this event that will be held the last Saturday and Sunday in June. They'd also like to use the picnic tables that are there and have access to the east side boat launch washrooms. There are some other events going on at the Bayshore at the same time, but we don't see those as being a conflict. The applicant has requested the city waive the rental fee for the Bayshore grounds, and the ground rental fee is $237. The city does have a policy regarding waiving of fees, and this request does not meet the policy. However, council may determine that the Amateur Radio Club's public service role, essential in the event of a communication breakdown, may distinguish its requests from similar requests received from other community organizations. So in terms of the rental fee, the standard fee is $237. The applicant is only using a portion of the ground, so if council is not wishing to waive the fee, perhaps a prorated amount for both days may be in order. So staff are recommending approval of the request. We're looking for direction regarding the fee. The applicant is aware of the requirement to provide liability insurance, and they will remove garbage and recycling following their use of the space.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Wright?
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a group that when we have an emergency, or if we had an emergency situation, or if we went into a situation that we had lost communication, this is the group that steps in and helps us out. In fact, when we have emergency exercises, they do send representatives to our emergency exercises so that they're fully aware of how we operate in case of an emergency, and they're always available. So I'm going to put a motion forward. I will approve the recommendation that they use this small piece area at the Bay Shore, which is, the Bay Shore will be open anyway at that time, and that we waive the fees.
Okay, so the recommendation made in the report with the waiving of the 237. Okay, discussion? Councillor Gregg?
Thank you, Mayor Bai. I'll support that gladly. I do just have a little bit further information just to put out there for discussion after the vote on that, and it pertains to the Georgian Bay Amateur Radio Club.
Want to put it out now? Or?
Oh, I could. I know amateur radio clubs in Canada have permanent exemption from distracted driving legislation. However, the case is only temporary in Ontario, and they are soliciting support in the form of letters or support to make that a permanent exemption. Ontario is the only province that does not have it as Ontario is the only province that only has it as a temporary rather than a permanent. And I'm wondering if, or what is the best way that I can put that information out there for council's consideration, perhaps for municipal support, knowing what they potentially could do for council should an emergency situation develop. Hopefully not. However, considering the nature of their work and that Ontario is the only province to not have permanent exemption, I'm just looking for some discussion on that, because I would be glad to support their request to the Ministry of Transportation for such.
Okay, now you presented that, I should have waited and let you go after. So I'm going to call the question on the motion first, and then I'm going to come back to you. I thought it might tie in, but so all in favor of Deputy Mayor Wright's motion? Okay, that is carried. Back to Councillor Gregg. What's temporary mean?
They have temporary exemption to, I believe it's February 1, 2018, temporary exemption which expires January 1, 2018. Our National Association of Radio Amateurs of Canada is preparing to present a case to MTO for a permanent exemption. In addition to the obvious example set by the rest of the country, Radio Amateurs of Canada is attempting to obtain as many local expressions of support as possible. And I wonder where we would...
Okay, so do you want to make a motion then?
I would make a motion that...
Councillor... Okay,
I'll wait for discussion.
Yep. Just before the motion, Your Worship, I was going to suggest that many groups and organizations with requests like this will provide a letter to us, properly worded with exactly what they want, and I just wondered if rather than muddling through and creating a motion, maybe or maybe not, that's going to work for them, if Councillor Gregg could just, on behalf of council, go back to them and suggest when they're ready with a properly worded letter that it then comes forward to us.
Good, yeah, that's fair. You okay with that? Yeah. Yeah, good thinking. Councillor McManaman, you're going to say the same thing? Okay, good, thank you. Next report is number 9 from Mr. Becking, I think, with regard to the Derby Landfill Agricultural Lease Agreement.
That's correct, Your Worship. Since 2006, the property in question has been leased out to an adjoining farmer who use it for mixed crop. The city also uses it as a location where we land apply our biosolids from the wastewater treatment plant. The current agreement lapses this year, and the gentleman in question wishes to renew the agreement. It generates roughly about $2,000 a year. The proposed agreement would include a 2.5% escalation clause per annum, so that the rate remains competitive in the marketplace.
Good, thank you. Discussion? Someone want to move it? Councillor Gregg?
Move the recommendation.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? carried. Thank you. Mr. Becking, can we do that with our other landfill site? Can we rent out, or is that premature?
I don't think I'm in a position to answer that question tonight, but I would be happy to provide council with some thoughts on that on further reflection.
Good, perfect, thank you. So I think that gets us through all of our staff reports. 11B is the consent agenda items. Ms. Stobo, are you going to go through those?
Yes, Your Worship, there are a number of planning notices from both Meaford and Georgian Bluffs where no report was triggered. There are minutes of boards and committees for receipt, including the Owen Sound Police Services Board for a meeting January 27th. Owen Sound Housing Company financial statements, Gray Sauble Conservation Authority Annual Board of Directors General Meeting, and their board meeting held on February 10th. There's also correspondence presented for the information of council. Another piece of correspondence regarding the Ontario Municipal Board, and council will recall that past correspondence in that regard from Aurora and Markham was directed to the Community Services Committee. Council may wish to do the same with this one. It's a bit different than the other correspondence. There's different recommendations. There's also Municipality of Grey Highlands regarding the health effects of wind turbines. There's correspondence from Gray Sauble Conservation regarding summer job service program cuts, and Grey Highlands regarding a nomination of Agnes McPhail to appear on a new banknote. There are two business license matters, one to Charlene Hoffman to operate a performing arts school on 2nd Avenue East, and a hawker peddler license for the broomball championships at the Bayshore on April 6th and 9th. I believe in terms of that one, the housing company financial statements, Your Worship, you may wish to have that matter postponed to another council meeting.
Okay. Councilor McManaman, are you going to, I need a motion to receive 11B1 to 11B8, and I think we're going to ask that, maybe we'll stop there. What do you want to do with number 5 in there, which is the financial statements? That might be the easiest.
I'd ask that number 5 be tabled till the next meeting.
Okay. Do I need a motion for that? Maybe. So that's a motion, and all in favor? That's carried, the reason being that it is on our agenda, but it wasn't readable for us to look at in advance. Okay, now I need a motion to receive items 11B1 to 11B8, except for 5 that we just dealt with, and 11B1 and 11B2 for approval. Councillor Kepke?
I'll make that motion, Your Worship.
Okay, and all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. If I can go back to 1, Ms. Coulter, do you want to give us a little bit of information on the Agricultural Society's licensed event?
Certainly, Your Worship. This event is, I think, their third annual barn dance to be held on Saturday, May 28th at the barn that's owned by the Agricultural Society at Victoria Park. This event has gone off a number of years without incident. It is a licensed event. Kerosene is providing the entertainment. Normally, it's council's practice with the Agricultural Society to waive the requirement for the security deposit. However, in the agreement, should there be damage to the park, they're obligated to repair it. So the recommendation is to approve the request to hold the licensed event at Victoria Park on Saturday, May 28th, subject to the conditions outlined in Schedule A.
Okay, thank you. Any questions to that? Seeing none, can I get you to give us a quick report on the boat launch contract as well?
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Bowie has operated the boat launch on both the west side and the east side during the derbies since 2007. He's provided excellent service on behalf of the city. The recommendation is that the agreement does provide that we can extend the agreement with Mr. Bowie. And the recommendation is that council approve a bylaw to allow the execution of an agreement from April 1 to October 31, with the option to extend the agreement again an additional year.
Good, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, thank you very much. Number 4 here is minutes from the Owen Sound Police Services Board. Councillor O'Leary, do you want to give us an update?
Sure, thank you, Your Worship. There are 4 different platoons within our police department. Over the months of November and December, here are the traffic safety initiatives. Platoon number 1 focused on Highway Traffic Act offenses, school zone offenses, and high visibility ride and foot patrol during the Christmas season. Platoon 2 focused on an increase of ride checks as well as enforcement of overnight parking bylaws, and there was 87 overnight parking tickets issued. Number 3 focused on compliance in regards to seat belts, also focused on vehicle stops in relation to permits, plates, and validation. Platoon 4 focused on safe winter driving practices, distracted driving, aggressive driving, proper lighting and clearing of snow of windshields, and license plates. The results of the ride program over the Christmas season: total of 70 officers, 27.25 hours, 1,888 drivers checked, 22 Highway Traffic Act charges, 1 roadside test, and 0 impaired driving charges. And I wanted to mention the police board sat through a presentation on PTSD, which was quite interesting. Without going into too much detail, I can tell you a couple of things. PTSD is real, and we're going to be hearing a lot about it in the future. The Police Service Board has shown a very strong desire to keep our staffs healthy and a strong desire to stay on top of information on PTSD as it comes available. There will be more to follow on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Gregg?
I do have a couple questions, and I guess they're procedural in nature. The meeting ends off noting that your next meeting is at 11 a.m., as was the case with the last meeting that occurred. And I was wondering, this meeting lasted 19 minutes, according to the minutes there. Started at 11:14 and ended at, let me see here, 11:33. And the last meeting lasted 31 minutes in duration. I've got a couple other questions, and they're probably related to that. And first off, I thought the new logo and the new corporate branding looks very good. It looks great. And the first time I saw it was on the new supervisor's SUV, a Ford, which looks nice. But in a years of minutes coming from the police board, we've never seen any discussion on a corporate rebranding, a logo, a vehicle purchase. When the meetings are that short, I'm wondering why it appears that so much of the information doesn't come out into the public here. Those are my questions.
Do you want to take a stab at it, Councillor?
Sure. Through your worship, the minutes that I did today are from November, December, I think January 27th. So, in particular, what you're talking about with the decals on the cars and that, we just covered that at our last meeting, our last public meeting, which was last week. So those minutes haven't come to council yet. So I suppose it's really no different than, when I do a DIA set of minutes, they're always from, the previous month or 2 months before. As far as the length of the meetings, this is clearly a mistake on it's because we had an in-camera meeting. There's always an in-camera meeting at 9 in the morning. They usually last till 11, 11:30. Then we go out to a public meeting, which is only every other meeting.
So the committee's been meeting monthly. It starts at 9. It usually ends at 12:30 to 1. But it's every second meeting that there's been a public meeting.
May I ask then why it's not advertised that the meeting starts at 9 and there's a motion made at that time to move in camera and note the items?
Well, I suppose it's a procedural thing, and it's funny you mentioned that because just the last meeting, we had a discussion on procedural. some of the procedural things that we do at the police board. And one of them is, what we talk about in camera and what we talk about in the public. And I think there's a criteria to be followed that it hasn't been followed in the past, but it will be in the future. So, in addition to what was brought up at our last meeting in terms of procedure, I will address what you're talking about, of having these things on the minutes.
So an awful lot seems to go into the closed meeting, and it's under the Police Act, and they could be talking about specific investigations, they can be talking about specific officers. And traditionally, it's always been enclosed. As Councillor O'Leary has mentioned in the last meeting, he poked at that to, we think there's too much probably that's being done enclosed that could be done in open, but it's going to take some work to get it moved over, because it's sort of the way it's always been done, and there's it's challenging the system a little bit to try and change it. But you're hitting some points that when we go in camera over there, closed meetings, we start with a closed meeting. We don't go through the process that we do under the Municipal Act of having an open meeting and then going, closing the door and going through the vote, the whole thing. It's totally different under the Police Act. But we think we should be getting more information publicly presented, and we're working on that. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think the actual operations of the police department is not public knowledge. So there is an awful lot that is in camera. Like, it's the opposite of what happens here. When we go in camera, we might have 1 or 2 items tops. At the police board level, like, it's mostly in camera, and then we go out and, like you mentioned, our public meetings are 19 minutes.
Well, that's good, because I think it should be more public. In vehicle purchases, the public has a right to know that the vehicle wasn't bought from Steve's brother, if you know what I mean. That it's an open, transparent process and everything's being followed properly.
Yeah, it was, and the last vehicle was 7 years old, as my understanding, and it was due.
Councillor Gregg, that's why we're there. We're making sure everything's done properly.
Councillor McManaman?
Just further to that, I do think if you're moving in camera, there should be notes made somewhere that that's happened. So I think it's been raised, but I would agree with the comment. I didn't realize you were meeting at 9 a.m., and I've been here for a long time, and I didn't know that in camera. So there should be some mention made that the meeting started, you moved in camera. Even in the public agenda, if that's all it says, at least that would, anyway. I'd like more information about how they're moving in camera and how that's being noted. So I think the point's been made, but I would agree with it.
Good, thank you. 6 and 7 were Grace Elbow Conservation Authority minutes. Councillor Kepke?
Thank you, Your Worship. The January 13th meeting was the annual meeting of the Conservation Authority, and I'm happy to say that Dick Hibma was re-elected as chair. He represents Owen Sound, and he certainly does a good job with that and Conservation Ontario as well. There was a letter to Premier Wynne regarding the control of invasive species of Phragmites australis in Ontario, and that was further discussed, and along with all the other usual AGM business. Item 11B7, the Conservation Authority minutes of February 2nd. There was more discussion on Phragmites. There was an update provided on the Mill Dam project and a review of the planning and regulation fees and conservation area fees for 2016 with some increases in that area. As well, there was a program update presented on drinking water source protection.
Good, thank you. Any questions? Seeing none. Thank you. So that gets us through 11B, the consent agenda items. So we're down to 11C, which is minutes of boards of committees, of boards and committees for approval. Guess we've really only got one left, don't we? Minutes of community services from March 16th, 2016. Councillor McManaman?
So Councillor Dodd's going to take care of those.
Passing the torch.
so to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Obviously, things must be moving too quickly if you're letting me start talking. The other thing, this must have been one of the quickest meetings that Councillor McManaman's ever chaired. So we have 3 things that are on the agenda today. So the first thing that we discussed was about a heritage property tax relief for the property located on 932 3rd Avenue West, which is the former U.S. consulate. For those watching from home, this program was meant to encourage owners who had heritage designated properties to invest in ongoing maintenance. So this program provides a maximum of a 20% refund to eligible applicants of the municipal and education portions of their property taxes. And council actually has an allocated annual budget of $15,000 for such activities. So this was one of the ones that it was just recently purchased by a new owner, so they had to reapply for the heritage conservation and maintenance agreement. So we dealt with that. Next thing, we looked at aquatic rates for the Harrison Park pool. There was a minor adjustment. The biggest ones to notice were that the open swim had been increased to $5. The family swim had been increased to $13 for the opening swim. These were done based on to be a little bit more comparable to what the Family Y rates are currently at the Julian MacArthur Rec Center. And that motion, it doesn't say there, which it should say in those minutes. It should be moved by Scott Gregg or Councillor Gregg on that one. And finally, we also discussed Tom Williams Baseball Park diamond renovations. This was a request by Steve Brown on behalf of the Owen Sound Men's Slow Pitch League for renovations to the Tom Williams Park baseball diamond, slow pitch diamond, whatever you want to call it these days. Work is involved. They were going to be removing some of the turf. This was requested to remove some of the infield turf and replace it with more of a clay mixture and have a portable pitching mound come into play when it was used for hardball by the kids. It was also noted that in 2015, minor baseball booked 91 hours of Owen Sound and men's slow pitch booked 237 hours, including the tournament play. So what the committee has recommended there, there'd be a public meeting be hosted through Community Services to obtain input from all ball diamond users to assist in informing the committee's consideration of this matter, confirm if slow pitch, Owen Sound Slow Pitch League, Steve Brown was going to be purchasing the portable pitching mound, and there was going to be a discussion with the executors of the Tom Williams Fund, seeing if some of this money could be allocated, because to do all the renovations as requested came to about $13,500 plus 2 days of staff time and equipment. So there is a little bit of money there that is being requested. Finally, we should note that Councillor McManaman, on behalf of the Community Service Committee, expressed all of our appreciation to Mr. Howard, John Howard, who was our former manager of Parks and Open Spaces, who retired earlier this month. And those are the minutes, so I would move those minutes.
Move approval with that amendment of adding Councillor Gregg as the mover of the one specific motion?
Yes.
Okay, any discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. I think we already dealt with the Operation Committee minutes, so we're down to 11D, which is minutes of closed meetings for approval. Councillor Lemon?
Motion to receive.
I think we're approving.
Oh, sorry, approve, sorry.
So both the closed session of council held
Yeah.
on March 21st, 2016, and the minutes of the closed session of Community Services Committee meeting held on March 16th, 2016.
Yes, I'm
Approving both those.
asking to approve both.
Good, thank you. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Other business. Councillor Kepke, I think I had first.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just want to bring your attention to the Earth Film Festival that's taking place on April 28th at the Roxy, and this is being put on by the Grace Alva Conservation Foundation. Tickets are $22, and it features a 90-minute film called Mile, Mile and a Half, which is a hike by 13 friends as they experience one epic adventure across 219 miles, and it takes them 25 days. So it's quite a great film, lots of humor in it. As well, there's some drone cinematography of the conservation properties by Kevin Moyse. And there are some short films, Nature is Speaking, narrated by various celebrities such as Julia Roberts, Harrison Ford, and many more. So if you're looking for tickets for that, they're at you can purchase them at the Roxy.
Thank you.
As well, the other item I was speaking to is regarding a listing of local scholarships available for youth. And the Community Foundation Grey Bruce has compiled a listing of scholarships. So if there are youth in the area that are looking to look for a scholarship, they can go to www.payforschoolgraybruce.com, and there will be a complete listing on that website of various scholarships and the requirements of those scholarships that will be available. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Wright.
Thank you, Your Worship. The beavers have been busy along the river, and they are rapidly destroying trees and hedges of the people that live on 2nd Avenue West Riverside, and they are also destroying trees down at the mill dam. And some of those trees are on city property that they're destroying, and some of them are memorial trees. And so I guess my question is, I know that Ms. Coulter and I have conversed on this, and I know that she has contacted Conservation. We've had a problem of beavers at the county as well, and Conservation has said it's not their problem, that it's M&R's problem. And we've had to hire trappers out of Toronto because we couldn't get any local trappers for some reason or other. But I think it's a real problem. But so my question is, if I could hear from Ms. Coulter what's happening about that. And the other one is, who is responsible for the trees, the memorial trees that are on city property that have been destroyed or damaged by the beaver? That's my number one.
Through your worship, about the time that you contacted me about the beavers, I, like you, thought I should contact Grace Auble, and then you got back to me and said you should contact M&R, which is exactly what Grace Auble told me. I haven't actually made contact with M&R. In terms of the memorial trees, I'll have to get back to you. I think the city guarantees them for 1 year, which is when we purchase them, we have a guarantee for 1 year. But I'll have to check the actual program to see if the city is obligated to replace those memorial trees, because they are purchased by other people and donated in memory often of individuals. So I'll need to check that, how that policy works, and get back to council.
Thank you.
And my second issue tonight is, on the 30th of April, the Order of Good Cheer is having their annual dinner sale. Now, this is to raise money for the washrooms at Kelso Park. We're all aware of the Order of Good Cheer, what they do for the city. The outdoor rink at the Harrison Park, the water at the Kelso Beach. So I'm asking for support for them, both from the council members. The tickets are $75. It's a dinner and a cruise up around the islands, and also the general public, that if they're able to purchase a ticket to support the Order of Good Cheer.
So that's Saturday, April the 30th. They usually sell out quickly too, don't they? So we've got tickets here at the city available at the front counter?
Yep.
At the Service On Sound? Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you for that.
Councillor Thomas, you have a couple of items.
Yes, I'll be brief, Your Worship. Under Economic Development and Tourism, I wanted to let you know that the cottage show this past weekend was successful. The city had partnered with Cobble Beach in Grey County to promote our area, and there was strong interest in real estate and relocation packages that were being handed out. There's another creative mixer coming up at Georgian College on April the 7th from 5:30 till 7:30 in the evening, presenting Saz Jamal, who's the VP of Marketing and Product Development from Communitech. This is a free networking event for local entrepreneurs, and you can register if you're interested by calling Steve Furness or contacting him through the city's website. At the library, I'm happy to report that the very popular Community Club Fair is back, and that's going to be Saturday, April 23rd from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. And so far, the clubs that are participating include the Toastmasters, the Genealogical Society, the Amateur Radio Club, the University Women, the Gardening Club, the Little Theatre, the Stamp Club, the Spinners and Weavers, Lawn Bowling Club, the Model Railroad Club, the Square Dancing Club, and Tai Chi. Now that is a mouthful, and that is a very popular event that lots of people come out to, and certainly if you have any interest in any of those clubs, this is the day to go out and find out what they're all about. And the last item is just a brief one. The library is presently looking for donations of comic books to create a new comic book lending library. So for those of you that have attics or basements filled with comic books or closets, the library would be happy to take them off your hands, and donations can be dropped off at the Public Services Desk or in Youth Services.
That's a neat one. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to highlight, starting next week, over the next 2 weeks, April 11th, 15th, 18th to the 22nd, is the 84th year of the Kiwanis Music Festival. That predates even Councillor Lemon.
Yes, and I am.
The Kiwanis Music Festival, huge event in the city and surrounding area, that's being held at Hillcrest School, First United Church, St. Andrew's Church, the Alliance Church, and over at Georgian Bay Secondary in Meaford. They have 60 volunteers, competitions for piano, orchestras, bands, choirs, brass, woodwind, strings, vocal, drama, and speech. Admission is free to all of these events, but donations are gratefully accepted. There is a giant, and then a wrap-up to that is a giant gala awards night at the Alliance Church on Monday, May 2nd at 7 p.m. So just congratulations to the Kiwanis Music Festival for 84 years of service.
Gala is Monday,
May 2nd. Does that conflict with council? I certainly hope not.
I've gone to that a few times and had my socks blown off the talent that's in this area.
No, it really is something. And the Kiwanis have sponsored this for, as I said, 84 years, and it really, it's an event to get some of the youth in our community, musically inclined youth, although I see they've added drama and speech to the event. Anyway, it's a big event. We focus a lot on sports, as we should, but this is another important part of our community that is a good focus. Good. That's all on that, Your Worship. I did have one other item, if you might. And I'm just wondering, we just went through 2 days of service review. I know it was reported in the local media, but if the city manager would wish to just give a brief update on what took place.
He may not want to, but what you're saying will he?
Could we ask the city manager to give a brief update on Service Review 2016?
Mr. Ritchie?
Certainly, Your Worship. Mr. Parker has prepared this little briefing note for me, so it certainly came in handy. I see he's headed home already. It was over an 800-page document that council reviewed over 2 days with staff. There were 55 recommendations presented to council from staff, and council had 14 they brought forward. 63 were carried by council for further review. I can tell you if all 63 were implemented, potential cost savings over a 3-year time period will be in excess of $1 million, Your Worship. So certainly, I think it was a fruitful 2 days to start the process. Next steps, staff will be meeting actually on Wednesday to work on our next steps. We will be having some comment cards and suggestion boxes around the city at this time. We will be crafting the questions we would like to pose to the public as well as our own staff. You can also go on SurveyMonkey, and comments can be emailed to servicereview2016@owensound.ca, and our website is www.owensound.ca/servicereview2016. There'll be a public forum on May 9th. I'm sure all council will attend, and we will present all of this information and the recommendations to the public at that time. to try to get feedback and again, two-way conversation so council can understand how the public feels about some of those recommendations. Hopefully, Your Worship, we will get some recommendations that neither staff or council have thought of from the public, and we will move forward. June 10th, we'll be having a half-day session with council to review all of that information. At this time, it is hoped that on August 10th and the 11th, we will have a final council meeting where council can approve to move ahead with some of these implementations or approve not to. And then on September 7th, we will be having a final public forum at the Bay Shore, hosted by City Council and staff to go over exactly what these implementations may mean to the public. And implementation will begin as soon as we can after that. Most of these you will see started in 2017, Your Worship. So the work has only begun.
Good, thank you very much. The only other thing that I forgot to mention earlier is the Canadian Broomball Championship starts at opening ceremony 7 p.m. Wednesday, April 6th. Councillor Gregg, maybe help me out. There's games all day and into the evening at the Bay Shore and Julie MacArthur Rec Center. There will be some kind of a central reception area, probably in the Bay Shore room, or so anyone that wants to go down and watch a national level competition in broomball will be going until the weekend with events and hospitality. Finals are on Saturday, not Sunday. Do you know what time?
I think the finals start 8:30 in the morning and continue till 1 or early afternoon.
Okay, good. So if anyone's looking for something a little different to do, go down to the Bay Shore to the Julie MacArthur Rec Center. Thanks. Okay, so that completes other business, I believe, unless anyone else has anything to add. Seeing none, so we're down to a motion that the committee rise and report. Councillor Lemon.
Yes, moved by myself, Your Worship, that the committee rise and report.
All in favor? That is carried. Councillor Lemon, just stay seated if you want to go through the others without, even though you're supposed to stand up, we'll waive that.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Dodd, that the action-taking committee of the whole in considering public meetings, deputations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports, matters tabled, motions for which notice was previously given, and other business be confirmed by this council.
And all in favor? That has carried. Thank you. Number 15, notice of motion.
None.
Seeing none. New business by resolution, I'm
None.
aware of none. Bylaws, Ms. Stovall or Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. There are 8 bylaws on tonight's agenda for Council's consideration. 1 bylaw to confirm the business of tonight's meeting. 1 bylaw to authorize the assumption of private lane Plan 24 for public use. And 6 bylaws to execute agreements already authorized by City Council for a lifetime encroachment agreement with Martin Cutton respecting part of the eaves of the existing building at 1091 2nd Avenue East, an agreement for engineering services respecting bridge, culvert, retaining wall, and road pavement condition index evaluations in accordance with an RFP, a heritage conservation and maintenance agreement with Shelley and Beverly Buckton for 932 3rd Avenue West, an agreement for the lease of agricultural land at the Derby landfill, a site plan agreement with the Governing Council of the Salvation Army in Canada for 1365 14th Street West, a lease and management agreement for boat launches with Charles Bowie, and an agreement with Roger, Catherine, and Scott Amiot for the operation of the Harrison Park Putt and Paddle.
Good, thank you. Councillor Lemon, do you want to move those? Or
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Deputy Mayor Wright, rather. The bylaws numbers 2016 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, and 2016-042 be passed and enacted.
And all in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. That completes our business for this evening. It is now 8:30. We adjourn this meeting. Thank you.